Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Take a look what happened.
Unfortunately, we had to show you that footage to get the point across. Political violence and assassination are not new to America. Something tragic and hurts us every time it happens. Political violence is one of the gravest threats to a democratic society. When individuals are targeted because of their beliefs or the role they play in civic life, what's at stake is more than one person's life.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man?
What's threatened is the ability of people to peacefully disagree, debate, and coexist. The recent assassination of Charlie Kirk at a university event in Utah, while deeply shocking and singular, is not isolated. It is the latest in a worrying pattern. Assassination attempts, violent political attacks, and threats to free speech. These events demand reflection about how we arrived at a place where political disagreement can so rapidly become lethal, and how societies can heal and guard against future tragedies. It's become deeply concerning how so many people have filled themselves with so much hate that they celebrate the death of a political figure today.
Charlie Kirk.
You support Charlie Kirk being killed?
Yes, I do.
On the day he died, you're here at a vigil for Charlie Kirk and you support his death.
Do you support a Nazi?
Well, I guess that's what happens when your entire career is just talking out of the side of your fucking neck.
Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Rest in peace.
I bet if you ask Charlie now if he thought a few deaths so that everybody got to keep their Second Amendment rights was okay by him, I think he'd probably say, as long as it wasn't me.
And I will say this with my whole entire chest. There are some people on this app that are sitting there saying, oh, you shouldn't wish death upon any person, no matter what side they're on. Fuck that. Fuck that. Charlie Kirk was a fucking Nazi.
I would say pour one out for Kirky boy, but I don't waste good beer on little bitches.
Posted on TikTok in a long time, but I'm gonna now because rest in peace, bozo!
The assassination of Charlie Kirk and the jaw-dropping reactions to it have caused great distress. Political violence, by definition, is any violent act perpetrated with a political motive or for political ends. It includes, but is not limited to, assassinations, hate-motivated attacks, politically oriented terrorism, riots, coups, and state-sponsored repression. It may be targeted or more diffusely aimed at groups. The motives may range from ideology, fear, reaction, revenge, desire for power, extremism, hatred, or the demand for silence. History is littered with political assassinations: Julius Caesar, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Robert F. Kennedy, and many others. Each of these shook their societies in deep ways, not just because of the act of killing, but because of what they represented: the silencing of voices, the possibility of change, the fragility of public life. Assassinations often occur during moments of turbulence or tension, times when societies are polarized and political norms are under stress. Charlie Kirk, who was the latest tragic political figure, was the co-founder of Turning Point USA, a prominent conservative youth organization. He had become an influential figure among young conservatives, often speaking on college campuses and in the media. His events, debates, speeches, public prove-me-wrong style Q&A, were part of a larger engagement strategy, often provocation and culture war in style. He was known for strong views on conservative causes: free speech, Second Amendment rights, traditional social values, and criticism of progressive positions on gender, race, immigration, etc. On September 10, 2025, Kirk was speaking at Utah Valley University at an event part of his American Comeback Tour, under a banner, "Prove Me Wrong." Just after the event began, while answering questions from the audience, including one about mass shootings, Kirk was struck by a bullet fired from the roof of a building. The shot hit him in the neck. He was rushed to a hospital, but he died. Authorities describe it as a political assassination.
That breaking news: political activist and conservative media personality Charlie Kirk shot and killed while speaking at an event in Utah Valley University this afternoon.
Kirk was a right-wing activist and founder of Turning Point USA, which is a nonprofit advocating for conservative politics on school campuses. It was on tour for the organization.
A targeted killing directed at a specific individual because of their public role. The response was swift and strongly condemnatory across the political spectrum. Presidents, governors, both party leaders and others called out how political violence threatens democracy. President Trump ordered flags at half-staff. Many observed moments of silence. On campus, classes were suspended. Immediate investigations were launched. Social media went into frenzy, both with grief, shock, calls for unity, but also with finger-pointing, blame over rhetoric, blame over political culture, blame over security failures. Kirk's death is tragic on its own. But to understand how such an event could happen, why it did happen, and what made it possible, we must examine deeper causes: structural, cultural, rhetorical, and institutional. One of the clearest trends is the increasing polarization of American politics. Not just disagreement over policy, but fundamental worldview differences, moral framing, and identity politics. Opponents are frequently cast as existential threats or moral monsters. This fosters an environment in which violence becomes thinkable. If someone is evil or existentially dangerous, then violence against them may seem justified to some.
The Matrix is a system, Neo.
Subscribe to my OnlyFans.
That system is full of degenerates. When you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of the woke system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to pick up a biology textbook. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on their pronouns that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the dude in the red dress? A dude? Look again.
In the coverage of Kirk's assassination, many pointed out how political discourse has escalated. Extremists on both sides using harsh language, accusations of radicalism, claims of fascism, extremism, traitor, etc.
Trump's a bitch. Why is that?
I don't know. We don't like him. That's the word around here.
Any particular reason why you don't like him?
No clue at all. I'm just going with everybody else saying.
These rhetorical escalators create a cultural climate where lines between heated speech and incitement can get dangerously thin. Threats of violence, physical confrontations at political rallies, and symbolic violence have become more common. The ubiquity of social media amplifies violent or hostile rhetoric. Sometimes symbolic violence escalates into direct threats. Over time, people grow desensitized. What once would be seen as shocking becomes part of the background. In this context, it becomes easier for someone to cross the line, from harsh rhetoric to planning or carrying out violent acts. In a mass society, public events are frequent, and security is always a balancing act between openness for democratic engagement and safety. Public political speeches often occur in places that are readily accessible to anyone. Security preparedness may be lacking or inconsistent. Law enforcement's ability to anticipate threats is imperfect, especially lone actors. In Kirk's case, though there was event security and cooperation with campus police, a single shot from a distance was enough to wound him fatally. It raises questions of situational awareness, planning, risk assessment, and perhaps the broader inability to prevent such incidents even with reasonable security. Media plays a double-edged role. Covering controversies increases awareness, but sensationalism can also amplify divisive rhetoric. Political leaders, commentators, and media outlets may unintentionally or intentionally push narratives that demonize opponents, setting up us versus them mentalities. Leaders also have responsibilities to avoid rhetoric that could be understood as endorsing or encouraging violence, or that frames opponents in purely existential threats. When leaders or influencers issue strongly demeaning statements, even metaphorically, they contribute to a climate where violence is more thinkable. There is debate about the precise causal chain, but many in the public eye are now asking, did rhetoric help make this event more likely? Many observers after Kirk's death raised that question. While some information remains unknown in Kirk's case, historically, many perpetrators of political violence share certain traits: ideological rigidity, a belief that peaceful channels are ineffective, a sense of grievance, sometimes mental health issues, often isolation or radicalization via media or social networks, and sometimes conspiracy thinking. These are not deterministic, but risk factors. Violence in politics does not end with the violence itself. Its effects ripple outward. Kirk's assassination and similar events inflict damage on many levels. At the immediate level, there is the tragedy of a life lost, a family bereaved, and communities in mourning. When political violence occurs in public settings, it leaves a psychological scar on attendees, witnesses, and the wider public: fear, distrust, and anxiety. In today's society, it also creates and spreads fear and panic through social media. This fear floods timelines and news feeds. When political speech becomes dangerous, people may self-censor. Speakers may avoid certain topics, events might be reduced or canceled. Universities, civic organizations, and media may become more risk-averse. This reduces the richness of public debate and weakens democratic culture. Violent political acts tend to harden camps. People become more defensive, more suspicious, more certain that the other side is irredeemably dangerous.
For years, those on the radical left.
That can lead to retaliation, which perpetuates a cycle. Charlie Kirk's killing, after widespread rhetoric about extremist threats from both left and right, may deepen this sense of existential threat on both sides. Many will see it as evidence of what they already believed, that political opponents are dangerous. That narrative can feed into radicalization. Some believe that due to his ability to push the envelope on hard questions dealing with Israel and Epstein could have related to his untimely demise. Could anyone involved have ties and wanted to keep him silenced? Part of the promise of democracy is that disputes are resolved through institutions, elections, the press, courts, and public deliberation. When those are seen as failing, if people believe that violence is more effective or that institutions cannot protect citizens, trust erodes. Confidence in law enforcement, in university administration to protect free speech, in the idea that the state is neutral and fair, all can be undermined. Violent political acts in democracies have ripple effects globally. They serve as cautionary tales or warning signs. Where democracies erode norms, it encourages autocrats elsewhere, sets dangerous precedents, and undermines the moral authority of nations to criticize political violence abroad. Also, global media spreads such events widely, shaping perceptions of safety, stability, and democratic health. Understanding causes and consequences is one thing. Preventing or mitigating political violence is another. Leaders must carefully shape language, recognizing that words motivate and frame what people feel is possible. Rhetoric that demonizes opponents or treats politics as existential war should be avoided or countered. Public condemnation of violence must be consistent, not only when my side is targeted, but always. Consistency builds legitimacy and moral clarity. Media literacy expectations. Public figures, commentators, media outlets should acknowledge their role in shaping political atmospheres. Perhaps news outlets can emphasize context, avoid inflaming rumors, reinforce norms of democratic engagement, disagree without demonizing, accept dissent, embrace debate. This includes education in schools and universities about civil discourse, the rights and responsibilities of free speech, the history of political violence and its costs. Promote empathy and pluralism, understanding political opponents as people with views, fears, values, not existential enemies. Events with public figures or contentious topics should have risk assessments, considerations of how easily they might be targeted, what security could be feasible without stifling openness. University campuses and public event venues might have tighter collaborations with law enforcement and security experts for planning events, without turning them into fortresses. Balancing openness and safety is difficult but essential. Early warning systems, monitoring threats, responding to violent threats online, law enforcement being proactive when people express intent or planning, enforce laws against incitement, threats, hate speech when they cross legal thresholds. This is tricky due to First Amendment rights, but many jurisdictions have legal tools for threats and violence. Ensure law enforcement is well-resourced, professional, nonpartisan, and capable of investigating threats and attacks thoroughly and transparently. Media outlets should avoid sensationalization. Ensure coverage that avoids dehumanization. Highlight stories of cooperation and reconciliation, not only conflict. Social media platforms should monitor violent threats, extremist content, enforce policies against them, but also guard against overreach that stifles free speech. Using Charlie Kirk's assassination as a lens, what might the above suggestions imply in concrete terms? After Kirk's death, many commentators, politicians, and citizens rightly pointed to the role of political rhetoric in heightening tensions. If we take seriously that language matters, then national conversations about the difference between metaphorical, hyperbolic language and dehumanizing, threatening language should become more robust. Universities hosting events by polarizing figures must anticipate not just protests, but threats to physical safety. Event security plans, coordination with law enforcement, surveillance, medical readiness, all become essential. University administrations may need to allocate greater resources to ensure safety while respecting free speech. The widespread bipartisan condemnation was significant. It confirms that there is still shared belief that political violence is unacceptable. Public responses, including vigils, statements, memorials, help reinforce common norms, but they must be followed by action, not just words. Efforts to monitor and counter radicalization, both online and offline, are critical. So are interventions to strengthen community, mental health systems, and to provide spaces for constructive political engagement so that people who feel alienated or disillusioned don't turn toward violence. In advocating for the prevention of political violence, it's important to acknowledge that there are trade-offs, complications, and risks. Free speech versus safety. Tightening regulations or security may risk chilling legitimate speech. There is always tension between maintaining openness and comfort in political debate and ensuring physical safety. Over-policing or surveillance risks. If security measures become excessive, they may feel oppressive, especially to marginalized groups. This may unintentionally reinforce grievance and distrust. Misuse of laws. Laws intended to prevent threats may be misused to suppress dissent or label opponents as extremists unjustly. Measures taken are often viewed through partisan lenses. Each side may suspect that safety, laws, or enforcement are biased. Ensuring fairness, transparency, and checks is vital. Complexity of causation. It is not always clear what directly causes a violent act. Many contributing factors, mental health, personal grievances, access to weapons, media, social alienation, intertwine. It may be hard to pinpoint preventive strategies with guaranteed efficacy. The assassination of Charlie Kirk reminds us that democracy is fragile. Democracy is not just a set of institutions, but norms, shared beliefs, trust, and civil behavior. When those norms erode, especially the idea that you can speak, organize, dissent, and engage without fear of violence, the fabric of civic life begins to unravel. Each citizen has moral responsibility to speak up when rhetoric becomes dehumanizing, to refuse to demonize, to support institutions that protect dialogue, to demand accountability when violence happens, and to foster empathy for those with whom we disagree. In every era, crises test the strength of democratic norms. Political violence is among the most severe of these crises. It is a burning test of whether society values life, free speech, political difference, and non-violence enough to preserve them, even amid anger, fear, and disagreement. The killing of Charlie Kirk is a tragic moment, one that forces reflection. It reveals both the potential depths of polarization and the urgent need for society to take steps to prevent such horrors. His assassination is not just about the loss of a person, but a signal that political violence, once considered an extreme fringe phenomenon, can reach the center of public life if the enabling conditions continue. If democracy is to survive, more than rhetoric and condemnation are needed. We must commit collectively to keep political disagreement vigorous, but keep violence unthinkable, strengthen norms of respect, responsibility, and empathy, improve security, law enforcement, and civic institutions so they can protect life without suffocating speech. Assure that justice is done swiftly, fairly, and transparently. In mourning Charlie Kirk, we must also choose to learn, to re-examine what kind of political culture we want, to insist that the right to speak and the right to hear is protected not only in law, but in practice, to ensure that no more lives are lost simply because someone believed differently, because someone spoke differently, or because someone feared the consequences of being heard, no matter if you lean right, left, center, or what shade of skin you bear. Inside, we all have blood that pumps through our veins. We are the same, no matter how much others want us to disagree. We are being segregated as we speak, and there is nothing we are doing about it. When someone begins to make traction, hoping to get each and every one of us to have a dialogue about a topic that keeps us in line, they seem to disappear.